Hi everybody, I am Ghosty from the Makoreactor team. Today we will look at Golbez, which is a really popular card at the moment. It's on everyone's tongues, probably after the success in Japan, but also seen some success in the West. He's usually on everyone's mind when building a deck, or will be soon, I think. This Golbez deck is but one of my Golbez brews. This is a lightning and the fire variant. It does not incorporate Cloud of Darkness or Delita, which is a little bit controversial as they are sort of what makes Golbez work, but this deck is not all in focused on Golbez, so that is probably why. Golbez is really important and really powerful, but sometimes Golbez just doesn't work, or they play water for example, so they will just use Leviathan or similar. You can also face hard counters like Yuna or Bahamut, in which case Golbez is not gonna see so much of success. I'm really hesitant about playing Golbez sometimes, but I really wanted to show the meta what Golbez is like, because sometimes it can really be an upset, and having faced it before is really important, so you get to see the sort of power it brings. Golbez decks generally incorporate some extra forwards. You're gonna be seeing a lot of forwards and very few backups, so the idea is putting your opponent on their heels from the start. Fortunately, I was being able to get the first turn here, and as you can see a little bit of my hand, you can see Gadot there, which is a really good start. You can see Tifa, you can see Red 13. I think I saw an Onion Knight there, I'm not sure, but I got a really good start hand, and as you're the first player, seeing one or two haste characters is really going to make it work. I drew a new hand though. All start hand was with Golbez are actually good. I think I wanted to see a Golbez on my start hand, so that's probably why I drew a new hand. I'm not seen much of my opponent's deck yet, so I cannot know the colors for certain, so I was a really bit hesitant there, but since I got the first turn, I knew I was going to be able to deal a damage or two. I got the Gadot Tifa start, which is a really good one, so I played those immediately and swung for damage. Getting that damage advantage is really important because you want to keep your opponent on their heels from the start. He can't play his normal economy start now, two backups like they would normally want to. What he's gonna have to do is playing a forward. So I sort of upset his strategy from the beginning, forcing him to not go for his late game mid-range kind of plan and forcing him to play and commit to forwards. If he doesn't commit to forwards, he's gonna lose straight away. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like he got a lot of forwards. He started by playing a Time Mage, which normally is a great start. He really would have liked to play some forwards this turn though, because this is gonna be a little bit painful. Maybe he's hoping for EXs, maybe light characters or something, but he was not able to produce a forward in an effective manner. Maybe he didn't want to throw 3 cards just to play a single card or similar. We haven't seen much of his hand though. So I discarded Sidane to play an Onion Knight to the field, just to be able to deal an extra damage here, so a potential of 3 damage coming out this turn, so it's really, really aggressive start. So he took another damage, he's up at 2 damage, this is a 3rd damage, and the 4th damage. So this game is nearly over, because getting those last few points of damage is going to be really easy, usually anyway. Sometimes Ice has some really good answers. For example, if he has Geel now, it's going to be pain, because he can freeze 2 of my characters. Then he just have 1 more to deal with, so he can really dull the aggression here if he has Geel. If he does not have Geel though, I think this game is over already. But we'll see, He discarded 2 cards for 4 crystal points to produce an Emperor, which is a really good card. I don't have really any ways at the moment to get around Emperor. He also played a Mime, just a small forward to be able to cover some damage, though I don't think Mime is going to do a lot at the moment. He can't really attack actually. If he'd attack on his coming turn, he would probably lose, but we'll see what my answer to this is. I played a Red Mage, which is really gonna be good. The Red Mage is gonna make me be able to run past Emperor, forcing his only defender at the moment to be Mime. So the Red Mage is really gonna put in some work on my next turn. Unfortunately, it's not gonna be able to do much at the moment, so we're gonna have to see. I discarded a Rigdia for 2 lightning crystal points and played a Katesith. Katesith will dull the Emperor, so I'm able to run past it and just deal damage, so it looks like this game is gonna be over. Tifa is swinging. Mime is forced to block one of the attacks. It chose to block the Tifa. Yeah, I choose to attack with Tifa first because as she is a haste character, it doesn't matter if it dies because I can play a new one anyway. So I managed to deal another 2 damage, and his Laguna trigger to dull Kate's it. That doesn't really matter though. Since there was no Squall, there was no freeze to see there. My opponent is really struggling now because what he needs is to produce something like 2 or 3 forwards to be safe. So he played, unfortunately, only 1 more forward. And I'm usually able to run past 1 or 2 forwards. I think I'll just end the game here. Only having 1 or 2 forwards is never enough, and the Geomancer cannot block enough damage. It can just block the 1 attack. I'm able to activate the Red Mage effect on Emperor, so it cannot take part in the defense. It makes it not able to block at all, so I think I'm just gonna go for the damage, forcing the Geomancer to attack and then just deal the final damage. So I think the Geomancer is gonna block the first 2 attacks, and then he is gonna lose on the 3rd attack. So the first game was really a short one, and yeah, there we go. That's the game. It's a very scary aggression from the deck, to be honest, and the general mid-range decks are only able to produce maybe 1 forward per turn, and that is easily dealt with. So that's the first game. It's very short. Alright, we are starting with the second game, and we roll to see who starts. Prefer to start, but whichever is fine. Yeah, my friend starts. He rolled higher and chose to go first. We don't really know at this point what decks the other were playing. We are mixing it up a lot, so we try to catch each other off, like not prepared. So we are gonna make sure that happens, especially since this is a best of 1 format. So we're kind of practicing going blind against other decks to see how we react and things like that. Let's see what happens then. The first turn as Golbez, when playing the Golbez deck, is really important. We would like to see several forwards, maybe a really good backup if we can, but otherwise just straight up forwards is good. We are preferring either a Gilgamesh setup, several cheap haste units, or a Golbez as the first character. Not knowing what he goes up against, my opponent probably didn't have any cheap backup, so he went for a free damage. It's not that bad, though if he knew he was facing Golbez, he would probably not throw 2 cards for a poor blocker, but we'll see what happens. I have several cheap options, looking at several 2-cost characters, so I'm likely to be playing 1 or 2 of my cheap characters at the very least. Each of them stronger than Lightning, so I kind of want to match the Lightning in power at the very least, and probably hoping to deal 1 or maybe 2 damage next turn. Most likely I'll be able to, but we'll see. I'll start it by playing a Black Mage at the very least. It's very handy to have. It's nearly an Odin for the late game, so it's really gonna be useful and deal with those really expensive characters. And the Warrior of Light, of course, having a bit of the same use there. If he play expensive characters, they're really not gonna be able to play around the Warrior of Light. It's usually able to trade upwards. It beats popular drops like the 4, 5, and 6 costs of nearly every color, Prisha being one of the few that actually can defend against a Warrior of Light despite being so expensive. Other popular choices are of course like the Legendary Squall, but seeing Lightning and his other color was Earth, I think I saw, so I was not very worried about that specifically. Since I had forwards in his discard, he chose to discard the Seraphine, not wanting me to get more of them. I was joking about just straight up attacking with my both of my characters, but since I was able to get, since I'm able to draw into more haste characters or things like that, I probably wouldn't just straight away attack. I want to look at the cards I'm drawing and then go for it. I saw some interesting card choices there, so we are going to see what the first play is from my side. Seems like I was considering playing a Lightning card for some reason. We see a Tifa as well, but The Tifa cannot get around lightning, so there probably was no point. And then, yeah, Cloud goes in for a damage. It is a Mustalia, unfortunately, which is going to be able to deal with a Warrior of Light, which is the most dangerous character probably on the field. I think I chose to pass here. I was not able to play Tifa. I don't see a red card in the hand, so unfortunately I was not able to go on the complete offensive. I think I'll just pass the turn here. No, tapping the Black Mage and discarding a Kate Sith to play a 3-cost Gilgamesh. Having something more for my next turn can be useful, especially as the Warrior of Light died. It was kind of my plan there. I would later have been able to play the Tifa to beef up the Cloud so he's not so weak. Unfortunately, my other card died, the Warrior of Light, so I really had to go for a plan B kind of move. Gilgamesh is really a nice card. Gilgamesh can assist with a sort of rush that I would have preferred to see the strongest sword. The strongest sword one is ridiculously powerful with this kind of deck as it doesn't have many backups. I think I was remembering playing something like 6 or 7 backups. My opponent played Seymour there. Seymour this removes a forward, breaks a forward of cost 3 or less, so it just straight off died. My opponent also played a Geomancer, so a cheap backup. He's really going forward with a strong economy, planning to beat me with just economy, knowing he's likely only going to take 1 damage as a sort of vengeance for it. Taking a damage to get this much ahead in economy is really a good one. I finally found the strongest sword Gilgamesh, so I played the strongest sword Gilgamesh, and that's what I'm aiming for right now. If I draw into Gilgamesh now, it's really gonna be painful for my opponent, as he has no way of effectively trading against that. Just discarding a single Gilgamesh for a nearly 100% chance of breaking. I think I'm at something like 80-something% chance of hitting a forward when I use it. So there is a lot of forwards, as you can see in my discard, nearly only forwards, seeing a single Black Mage as the only backup yet. So my next turn is going to be really scary now. I'm drawing 2 cards. If I draw a Gilgamesh, I think this may be game over straight away. My opponent played a Deleta though, so I have a little bit of a difficulty getting around that. But I have multiple options. For example, if I deal a damage to it, I could use my Black Mage to remove it. And we're discussing about tactics and how to get around bigger drops, but I think it's very easy. He has very few options at the moment. If he blocks my 2-cost Cloud, he knows I can just destroy it with a Black Mage. So that it's very, very difficult to defend against this. I don't think I saw a Gilgamesh in my hand, so I was kinda... and my opponent probably think I don't have one either. Either that or I'm saving the Gilgamesh for my next turn. Looking if he maybe plays something expensive like Appreciate or similar. If he plays Appreciate, it is going down if I manage to use the strongest source. I think either I didn't have a Gilgamesh or I saved it just to be sure. My opponent is considering his next move because he's already 2 damage behind and he's likely to not be able to deal a damage this turn, but he's probably going to take a damage or 2 during my next turn, since I have so many cards that goes around a single defender. He chose to pass turn. Maybe he has something like an Odin on hand. Maybe he didn't have a cheap forward. Maybe he just had summons. We'll see, but he only has 3 cards, so he can't produce a whole lot this turn. I'm thinking he has something like an Odin, but I don't really know. If he uses Odin though, I can still respond with the strongest sword, so we will see. What I would like to see now is preferably a Kate Sith, but I didn't. Oh, there we go. A rare lightning is just as good. So I played a rare lightning for 2 cards discarded for 4 crystal points. So I played a rare lightning down to the field, and he responded by yeah. I didn't really quite catch what he did there. He was looking around for his cards there to see if he could respond to it somehow. I don't think he could. He really would have needed something like an Odin or something to deal with. Unfortunately, spending all his mana on crystal points on an Odin probably wouldn't done much either, as he really needs to produce forwards to have any shot. So he took a lot of punishment from that. I was able to play a lot there actually. Dealing this much damage really makes sure he can never tap out characters on defense anymore, because I could potentially blow up something with a black mage. I could probably play another like a Kate Sith. I could play a strongest sword, so I have multiple options in my hand. I've even saved the Gilgamesh to be able to do a strongest sword here, and we see a strongest sword coming up. So I think, yeah, this game is over. This game is definitely over. Yeah, I picked the Gilgamesh because he played the Seraphi, and that is really going to help me. I'm immediately going to use the strongest sword, and the target is going to be the Lita. I know it's not going to swing anyway, so it's not quite a misplay to use it straight away. And if I activate the strongest sword and removes the Lita, it's an auto win. He's considering his options right now, seeing if he's able to do something at all. He chose to pick a lightning, which might be a good move. It is a strong defender, but he really needs a multitude of blockers to be able to deal with my sort of offense, and I don't see it happening. A mid-range deck usually draws less than 1 forward per turn. A mid-range deck usually only plays maybe 21 or 22 forward, so since he doesn't even draw 1 forward per turn, and I can easily deal with 1 forward per turn. I deal with an average of, I think, 1.5 or 2 forwards every turn if I want to. Also adding to the fact that I have Red Mage, Kate Sith, Rare Lightning to just, dull them. So I can both remove forwards and I can remove blockers as well. My opponent played a Sephiroth and a Vanilla, really strengthening his wall here. It is looking really grim now. It's a little bit too much to be able to get through. Even if I get a Rare Lightning or anything, I really can't see myself getting through this. But I know I'll be able to get rid of at least one with the strongest sword this turn. If I'm lucky, I'll get rid of another with the strongest sword next turn. So it is looking pretty solid still. But if you compare our fields, mine is much weaker. Keep in mind that Zidane is a damage and not a forward, so my field is looking way weaker. And we have a strongest sword going here, and it's it. It nearly always hits, but you never know, sometimes it hits a backup. I'm not playing any summons though. Yeah, I've considered including like 2 4-cost Odins, for example, but I have so many break effects that it's not really mandatory to play, to be honest. Hitting those extra strongest sword and getting a more consistent start is usually more useful, to be honest. You always want to see a couple of cheap forwards on the start hand, so I include like 10 extra or something like that. On this turn, I'm really only looking for maybe Kate Sith to be able to dull Sephiroth, or another strongest sword to be able to deal with a Sephiroth, and then I just swing through for damage, forcing him to block with something too small with a Gilgamesh. That's really painful, and the new Vanille would come in dull, so I'm contemplating the options of getting through this wall as cheap as possible without going all in, because if I'd lose all these 3 characters, I'd likely never be able to get back into the game again. That's a downside of having so few backups. But here comes the Kate Sith, is a great play. I have 3 in my deck, so it's gonna happen a lot, but it was kind of lucky drawing into the Kate Sith, so I'll be able to just tap the Black Mage, play a Kate Sith to the field, and dull his strongest defender. That is really gonna pull the edge out of his defense, so to say. Yeah, with Sephiroth down, he has a 6k and a 7k blocker, so nothing can really effectively block the Gilgamesh. So that's crazy. And the Cloud, since Kate Sith is a Final Fantasy VII character, Cloud is up to 7 now. So I have 2 characters that cannot be blocked without breaking a defender at the moment, and I also have another that can swing for damage. So I can just swing with those 2 characters right now, and it is going to be game with my 3rd character, which is going to be Lightning. So if I just swing with Gilgamesh first, then Cloud, in whichever order, to be honest, and then my Lightning, I'm fine, and I'm definitely winning the game. All of this just because I'm so much ahead in damage. I'm actually losing the trades, if you notice. My characters are generally a little bit weaker, but since he is forced to block and forced to not attack, I'm still coming out ahead. He's never able to get an edge out of his backups, for example. His Seymour, while breaking something, has not really gained a whole lot of crystal points for him yet, and his Geomancer hasn't either. So he's not been able to gain a whole lot on playing his backups. Unfortunately, he doesn't have many forwards in his deck compared to a Golbez deck, so I was able to deal the final damage and just end the game despite him having 4 forwards at that point. It's pretty all in, to be honest, a Golbez deck, but this often happens, to be honest, because since mid-range decks have so few forwards in comparison, I can usually either break or run past the few that exist. So I think Lightning and Fire is decent for a Golbez deck, though I probably prefer the Earth and Water variant since they bring so much tech. Using Deleta on Golbez to trigger it, and using Cloud of Darkness to reduce the defenders and triggering the Golbez, for example, that is really useful as well. Sort of setting up for a nearly guaranteed victory, because you can sort of break the Golbez and use Red Mage on their only defender, and swing with your 2 haste characters to deal 2 guaranteed damage that they can't really do a whole lot about, so that's really scary. But as you can see, I think Fire and Lightning has a very offensive part. This is a very Golbez Rush kind of deck though. It's kind of all in. It has a few backups though, so it can sort of play 3-cost characters and 4-cost characters as well. And it has some longevity because of that, but I think the Golbez deck is still kind of all in, and the way I play it is really going all out on the aggression. So this is a kind of all out aggressive Gilgamesh deck, and I kind of like it, to be honest.